Well, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is set to win a resounding victory in the country's snap elections. Media projections show Abe's conservative coalition is on track to win 311 seats in the 465-seat parliament. Vote counting is still underway. Abe dissolved the lower house less than a month ago, forcing the snap elections. The more powerful chamber chooses the prime minister. Abe's victory will boost his chances of winning another three-year term next September as leader of the Liberal Democratic Party. That could extend his premiership to 2021, giving him more time to pursue his longtime goal of revising Japan's post-war constitution. Turning to Ontario, joined by political analyst Mr. Jason Unruhe. Thank you so much for being with us. Tell us now the significance of the snap elections, and it seems that Abe is going to win big.
Oh, I think it's definitely something pretty significant. His leadership was struck with two cronyism scandals, and it hasn't seemed to hurt him in the least bit. It seems that he is poised to take control of the country once again for another term, and it does appear that that this is a good thing for his goal of rewriting the Constitution. You know, primarily it was coming out of World War II that the military was only intended to be used for self-defense. But now the rewriting of that Constitution, which he seems completely hell-bent on accomplishing, would see Japan completely changing the orientation of its military into a force that can be used much more aggressively, something that can be sent out to do things, as opposed to something that was merely to stand by and defend the country if needed. I think this is a way of Japan projecting its interests on the rest of the regions. The problem is that this piece of legislation has always stood in the way of accomplishing that. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this comes at the same time as he promises a very hardline stance towards the DPRK, as he stands as a very strong ally with U.S. President Donald Trump at this time. So I think the combination of the two, the wanting to rewrite the Constitution to have to change the orientation of the military and taking a much more aggressive stance towards the DPRK, certainly do indicate a change in the historical stances that the country has traditionally taken.
Well, does that mean you think that the majority of people, at least the majority of those who voted, actually are taking a more hawkish stance now in Japan, as you said, that he is allied with U.S. President Donald Trump and taking a more aggressive stand towards Pyongyang?
Well, yeah, I would say that a good majority of the people are on that side. I mean, Japan has done a good deal of effort, has put out a good deal of effort with getting their own population behind this kind of rhetoric towards the DPRK. As we saw, routine missile drills were done, very similar to the old duck and cover kind of drills that people in the United States saw during the Cold War. And this is done largely to push the population towards a kind of paranoid state where they believe that they're going to die at any kind of time. And thus, in that kind of situation, or at least with that kind of mentality, they will look towards a strong man who will take a much harder stance towards what they perceive to be a threat to them. Although I would say that the DPRK is not interested in war. It's not looking for that. But certainly Japanese society seems orientated towards that premise. This seems to be very much maybe the reawakening of Japanese imperialism under Abe, as the country is taking a much more aggressive stance and looking for a justification to do so.
Thank you so much for being with us out of Mr. Jason Unruhe, political analyst.